now. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, Happy New Year, everybody. It's 2023 and look, we're still alive and still here and kicking. I think that's pretty cool just in itself. So I'm really excited about tonight. This is the first meeting we've had in person for a couple of months. Sorry about last month. The museum had a conflict and the speaker had a conflict changing the dates. So we wanted to respect our speaker. So we kept it on Tuesday and just did it as a Zoom, and it was a great presentation. So first, I'd like to welcome our new board of directors. We have Roxanne, who's been up, there she is. Carl Johnson. Margaret Gaines is still on the board, but she's probably logged in from afar. Colin Tyler, Alan Musey, Jen Corbell, thank you very much for the Alaska Wild work you do. Amber Johnson, who's skiing in some amazing place. Doug Hupp. Corey Lesher is one of our newest members. Corey, where are you at? Yay, thank you, Corey. Cindy Nunn, Gail Newfield, and myself. So thank you, everybody. I also wanted to take a minute and thank Margaret for all the hard work that she's done as our board president. I never did remember how, does anybody know how many years she was president? I didn't have time to figure it out today, but yeah, she's 25, 30, is that what you said? Yeah, something like that. Yeah. So our annual retreat is going to be held on January 21st from 10 to 2 at Carl's house. Thank you, Carl, for donating your house. And at that time, we will be talking about what all we want to do for the coming year, as well as elect the, what do you call it? The officers of the organization. So right now I'm just the liaison. I also wanted to make an announcement. Ed and Georgia Bennett are having a show at the Girdwood Visual Arts Center on February 4th is their open house, and it's 20 years of Alaska wilderness photography. It will be up for the entire month of February, but their open house, they're going to have food and all kinds of stuff. We'll be in Girdwood, and the Visual Arts Center is right next to the bake shop. If people don't know where one is, surely everybody here knows where the bake shop is, which is right down in main Girdwood. The other two things that I wanted to make announcements about was Jessica Ricks, is that how you pronounce it, Jen? Is our Alaska Wild judge, and she will be coming up here to announce all the winners of Alaska Wild, as well as do a presentation that evening. She was very excited about the show and said that, you know, with just a few tweaks here and there, the whole show would have just been unbelievable with every image that was entered. She's also agreed to do a 3-day workshop, March 11th, 12th, and 13th, on how to create impactful images and how to do your own critiquing and possible portfolio reviews. We haven't worked out all the details. Jen and I have been talking to Jessica. I was hoping that she'd write up something for me last night, but she texted me this morning and said she'd been working hard all day, so she'd get something to me tonight. So I'll get all the information in the e-news. She's not charging us very much to teach the workshop, so we're trying to keep the expenses down as much as possible so we can pass the savings on to the group that want to take that workshop. We have about 7 people that have already signed up. So if you're interested, you want more details, but you want to get on the list just in case you might be interested in taking the workshop, see me tonight because I have the lists here. And the other exciting news is Art Wolf has agreed to come back and do another workshop for us. And the way this came about was we were in Brazil on a houseboat photographing jaguars. And the only other person that was on the boat with us was Art Wolf and his friend who created Lightroom and works for Adobe. And we found Art a jaguar one day. So over free caparinas that he was happy to pay for, I approached him and I said, you know, you really need to come back and do a workshop for us in Alaska. And he kind of rolled his eyes like, okay, you know, whatever. And he normally charges about $1,500 a person to do his workshops. He's just an amazing workshop instructor, an amazing photographer. And he said, well, maybe I could do a 1-day thing or something. I don't know. But we spent the next like 5 days with Art, and we just had a blast the whole time that we were there. And I kind of forgot about it. And then about a week ago, I get an email from his office. And the gal says, you know, Art had so much fun with you guys in Brazil. He decided he wants to do a workshop. And these are the only 3 days that he has available, July 30th to August 1st. And he wants to do his workshop on cultivating vision and imagination, which is what most of his workshops he's teaching now. And I don't know if any of you guys have ever seen any of Art's work or all of the different things that he does with his work, but he's quite a visionary when it comes to vision and imagination. He was working on a book on cats when we were there, which will be probably his 40th book. That workshop is selling out fast. It's $995 per person. That's for 3 days. That doesn't include lodging. If you want to stay in Girdwood, you know, I have friends that have bed and breakfast there or have cabins. I might be able to help some people out with something like that. But try to see me tonight if you can on that, because that one will sell out fast. It's a once in a lifetime chance to do something with Art Wolf. And if you've ever taken a workshop with him, of course, the last time I got him to teach a workshop here, I ran into him in Denali, and I didn't even know him. I walked up to him. I said, "Hi, I'm Kathy Hart. Will you come and do a workshop for my photo club?" And he was on a kill and in a really good mood. And he goes, "Yeah, sure." And I said, "We can only afford to pay you $1,500. He said, "That's okay. Just contact my office and we'll be done with it." So we actually did it at Brooks Lodge in Katmai. And at the end of the workshop, he said, "Well, how much are you paying me anyway?" And I said, "You're paying me $1,500. And he said, "Oh, that's about right. $1,500 per person, right?" And I said, "No, $1,500 for all 20 of us." And we've been friends and shared tequila all over the world together. And I just love him to death. He's an amazing man. And so I highly recommend, if you have a chance to spend 3 days with him, it's well worth your time. I'm hoping that he forgot about that little part, but he won't let me do that again. But anyway, without further ado, does anybody else have any announcements they'd like to make? Okay, without further ado, Carl Johnson would like to come up and introduce our guest speaker for tonight. Oh, yes.
All right, because I'm going to hand this off to somebody else here shortly, I'm just going to hold on to it. I'm really pleased to introduce Brian Adams to you tonight. He's very talented. He learned a lot from working under Clark James Mishler. His first book, I Am Alaskan, was an amazing collection of portraits of people from all over Alaska, all walks of life, all types of personalities. But I'm really excited about his next book, his presentation for tonight, which is I Am Inuit. Now, Brian is a Inupiaq. His family is from Kivalina on the Bering Coast, up there above the Seward Peninsula, above Northwest Arctic area, so above Kotzebue. And I think his book tells a story that I think needs to be told more about nature photography. We always think of nature photography as separate from the human existence, but in Alaska, and Brian's photography really shows this, you cannot separate people from nature. They are intricately connected, particularly for the people who live in the rural parts of Alaska, who have lived a traditional subsistence lifestyle for thousands of years, but also increasingly as climate change starts to impact their way of lives, as well as our way of life, even here in the big city. So to thread this all together and show you his amazing portraits of people from the northern part of our state, I give you Brian.
Thank you. All right. Thank you so much for having me. All right. Sorry, my screen. All right, well, let me know. I'll hook it onto my hoodie here. Yeah, I'm not a really loud speaker, I don't think. So I might want to hang out over here. Is it okay if I hang out here? All right, cool. So, oh my God, thank you so much for having me. It's so good to see you all. There's so many familiar faces here. I've missed you all. it's been like a decade for me. It's felt like a decade. But I grew up, as a late teenager coming to meetings like this with this group and ASMP and APC and like every meeting I can possibly go to just to consume photography because I love photography. So I'm very grateful to be here tonight. I'm happy to see all your faces. This is my first in-person talk and sharing of work in about 3 years. I've done quite a few Zoom lectures with students over the years, but it's nothing like being in person. So thank you so much for having me. I brought work for I Am Inuit, obviously, because it was titled I Am Inuit, the lecture. There is I Am Inuit work in here, but I also brought some other work, some work that led me to I Am Inuit, recent work, and I'll try and get through it and not take up too much of your time. But I always figured it was best to start from the beginning and kind of give you an idea of where I came from and how I, got to the work that I'm doing today. So it all started with skateboarding. I started skateboarding when I was 7 years old because I love the movie Back to the Future. I thought it was the coolest looking thing in the world. So this is me and my friend David North. His mother took this photo of us together. Skateboarding really, like, I was a very introverted kid. I I grew up in Girdwood, so this is Girdwood in the 90s. So I was always playing alone in the woods, but skateboarding got me out to see people, meet people, and just be out in the world and look at the world in a different way. Because everything, like, you look at architecture even different. You look at like how something's built, how a stair set's built, how a handrail is built, how a ledge is built. Like, you look at it all in a little bit different way, and I just really appreciate it for that. So I started off skateboarding at 7 and eventually got into video, and then video eventually got me into still photography. I started taking video classes during high school because they were the closest thing to still photography. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. That makes no sense. I started taking photo classes in high school, and we had a darkroom at the time too, which was amazing. They don't get that nowadays because it was the closest thing to video. Sorry. But so I started off with still photography, mostly with friends and with skateboarding. What I liked about it is it taught me to learn a lot about lighting and where to place lights, how to match lights, how to make things look natural as possible or completely unnatural and just freeze the frame. So this is all very, very early work. I'll try and blast through this. I also liked photography or skateboarding photography because it taught me about timing. So I'm sure all of you know timing is very important. Like, the cameras I shoot with typically max out at 500th of a second. So not everything is super crisp, sharp, but it still gets the story done for me. This is all very early work. And I'm showing you this because it's all part of the long story. But so this was the first photo that I ever took where I felt like I knew where I wanted to go as a photographer. When I made this photo, we did a whole bunch of variations of my friend Michael here on the grass. She was going to RIT at the time, and I went to go visit her there. And every night I'd walk back to my hotel down the street, I'd walk by this light that was lighting the grass, and it just looked like a photo to me, but it was just missing a human element because all my work pretty much tries to hold on to some sort of human element. And so we did a whole bunch of variations, but after I made this photo, The simplicity of it really got to me. Put my phone down here, sorry. I love the simplicity. I love the space. And I was working with a lot of different formats at the time. 35 millimeter, 645. And then this is what really led me to landing on 6x6. That's my main format. This is all still early history. So in 2005, the last photo is in 2006 also, sorry. So we're going to jump a little bit around. But and so in 2005, you know, at that point, I eventually bought a Hasselblad, which you'll see a lot of later. But so at this time, I still didn't have the camera I wanted, but I was shooting with all the formats that I could. And so at this time, I was very inspired by the movie War Photographer with James Noctaway. So I was shooting a lot of 35 millimeter black and white at the time. But so this was at my grandmother's funeral in Kivalina. And it was on this trip where it's like, okay, I figured out what I like with a photograph and the style that I like with a photograph. But then this put me into like what I like to photograph and what I love to photograph. So when I was here in Kivalina, which is my home village, being there for the funeral, being there with the community that I hadn't seen since I was 8 years old, it really made me realize that like, this is where I want to spend my career. This is what I want to do with my career. I want to be in the villages. I want to be helping people tell their stories. And this was, yeah. So I was, let's see, 2005. So I was like, just turned 20 maybe. But so it was a very meaningful trip for me. I put in this photo because like we're just going through like what helped me figure out things. And so this photo is a portrait of the author Gary Paulson, taken up in Willow. And this assignment happened, and some of you might have heard this story before because I love this story. But so, like Carl said, well, when I was a teenager, I was assisting Clark James Mishler right out of high school. So 3 months out of high school, I started assisting Clark, and it was one of the best experiences of my life. Like, I love Clark. I miss that guy. I still haven't been down to Napa to visit him yet, and I can't wait to see him again. But so when I assisted him, he used to have me house sit all the time. And on this particular time, I had just gone freelance. It was 2005. I had just gone freelance. And well, this was actually taken in 2006. But and so in 2005, I went freelance. And that first year was obviously nothing, like made no money, living with my parents, just trying to build a name for myself, build a website, and just basically you just need work. You need to have work out there. And in 2005, we didn't have Instagram. Like, there's no Facebook. Like, or you know, people aren't using Facebook. Like, so it was all based off of your website and word of mouth for the most part, and exhibits and stuff, lots of things. But so at this time, Clark's out of town. He's on a trip with Mitzi. And when he's gone, when I'm house sitting for him, I always answer the phones for him and, you know, still do my normal assisting duties while he's away. And so I got a call from Getty Images, and they, you know, they asked if Clark was there for an assignment. They didn't say what the assignment was or who it was for. But I was like, no, Clark's not here, but, you know, call this person. And they like called them, and they're like, they weren't available. Do you have anybody else? And I was like, okay, so call this person. Okay, they're not available. Do you have anybody else? I was like, can I refer myself? So they're like, yeah, okay. So they're like, send us your website. And so I sent them my website, and they're like, yeah, the client's down with it. Like, they like your work. So this is the assignment. And it ended up being for the New York Times. Gary Paulson, which I was so excited for because I grew up loving the book Hatchet. I was a big fan. When I came to photograph him, I brought my copy of Hatchet and asked him to sign it. And he was the sweetest man ever and totally signed it and helped me like look everywhere around his house for my phone when I lost it, my little Nokia, which ended up being in my car. But so this is a photo that really like helped spark my career. It helped, you know, just like having a photo in the New York Times, having that byline was just really great. And it helped me with advertising work, especially in Alaska, because they're like, how'd you get that? And I'm like, well, it's a crazy story. Let me tell you. So right now we're moving into my body of work, Disappearing Villages. When I would travel for commercial jobs, and some of these are editorial and some of them are commercial. So the first job I ever went to Kivalina for was for ANTHC, and they hired me to go photograph the clinics there. But while I was there, I saw the seawall that was there, and they just built it, and 180 feet of the seawall had just been knocked out. So it was like a very poorly planned, engineered seawall. And so it sparked my interest in climate change. You know, and this is in 2006, I think, maybe 2007. Okay, sorry. But so started working on a body of work about climate change, which I call Disappearing Villages. So these are some photos from that series. This is from the first trip to Kivalina as a photographer, as a working photographer, in 2007. And this was the seawall when I got there in 2007 for ANTHC. The Chukchi Sea. So this body of work is an ongoing body of work. I don't know if it could ever end. So I keep adding to it. This is probably from like 2018, 2000, I think 9, 2007 on that first trip. When I pack a lot lighter nowadays. Typically when I go out to photograph, pretty much all editorial assignments, I use 2 Hasselblads with a 80 mainly, a 150 and a 50 millimeter. And at the time I used to pack a whole lot more, like a flash and all that stuff. And, you know, I think this photo is better with a flash. I would not like to see it without the flash, but typically nowadays, I typically don't bring a flash. If I do bring a flash, it's just a small Vivitar that I mount onto the top of my Hasselblad and bounce it off of a ceiling or anything else I can bounce off of. So I've streamlined this whole system quite a bit. So the last few photos were all taken in Kivalina, and now we're into Nutuk. Nutuk I went to in 2008. So these are all from 2008. I went there for London's The Guardian to do a story on climate change. And at the time, because climate change at the time was still being debated if it was actually happening. It was still, like, to me, wildly being debated. And I was like, how could you be debating about this? This is obviously happening right here in front of our eyes. And in Nutuk, it was very, very obvious because their coastline, when I got there, they're like, for the last 3 years, we've been losing about 90 feet a year. And this is Bosco and Bosco with the Nutuk coastline behind them. This is Bosco and Bosco and Hannah and Sabrina standing on coastal erosion. What was crazy about this piece is you could jump right in and you drop down like, you know, about 10 feet and you could just stick your hand right up against the permafrost. And it was cold, but melting. I love this photo. It meant a lot to me back then, and it means even more to me now because a few years ago I did a workshop with the museum, and it was kids from Newtuck, and it was just a short hour and a half, maybe 2 hour workshop just talking about photography. And the little girl in the blue, she was in the workshop, and she was a teenager and just like huge. I was just like, oh my gosh. And the reason why we figured it out is like, because the museum had I Am Alaskan here, and we were going through the book. And she's like, that's me. It melted my heart. Oh my God. This was another early photo I made that kind of helped me keep going on the path of what I feel like I visually love to see with, and like what I'd like to leave behind with my work. Simplicity and the human element with Alaska. And this being like a outdoor nature photography group, I was trying to like, I was like, should I cut out more portraits and include more photos that I have of landscapes? But then I had to remind myself that Alaska is always one of the main characters and like main subjects in all the photos I make. That's the whole point about my environmental portrait photography, is I'm really interested in and want to help tell the story of the person in the photos. But Alaska is a huge part behind every story that I want to tell. Oh, so sorry, we just skipped ahead. So that's the end of Disappearing Villages. And now we're into I Am Inuit. I Am Inuit came together. It was a collaboration between myself and the Inuit Circumpolar Council of Alaska. A lot of the photos you just saw were included in my book, I Am Alaskan, which came out in 2013, I think. So they love that book. Humans of New York at the time was really blowing up, and they thought it would be a cool idea to make a body of work that was similar to Humans of New York, but about Inuit. And I loved that. So it was like all really fresh at the time because I Am Alaskan had just come out. So we started the conversation about what became I Am Inuit. We didn't have a title at the time, but I was like, well, it kind of fits my brand of what I'm doing right now. I don't think I'll do any more I Am books, but maybe an I Am Alaskan Volume 2. I think that would be really fun. But so we had our first conversation, and I was very like upfront with them about everything because I'd just come off of I Am Alaskan, and I kind of, all the numbers were all really fresh in my head. And I was like, for me to go to 20 villages, to publish a book, do an exhibit, and all, like just adding it all up, I was like, we're gonna need about probably $100 to $120,000. And they're like, okay. So I went home, and it was just like, that's not gonna happen. You know, like I just didn't know, like I was just being very realistic about how much it's actually gonna cost. And I went home, didn't hear anything back, didn't hear anything for 3 months. And then they called me up and they're like, we got our first grant for 30K. Let's go. So it was just a huge like blessing to me. I was just like, yes, let's do this. Like I was hungry, they were hungry, like let's go. Like I'm so happy the way it worked out, and very grateful to ICC and everybody that funded it. This photo is of Marie Rexford in Kaktovik, Alaska. Sorry, we've been sitting here so long, but I'll tell a quick story about it. This is Marie Rexford and Kaktovik. This is early on in this is before we even launched the project. I made this photo. So what they're doing, or what she's doing right now, is she's separating all the muck tuck so it doesn't congeal together. So she's separating it out, and you can't really see it too well, but like it's on plastic. So she's separating it out so that way it can freeze, and then they can store it for the Thanksgiving Day feast, which is coming up, because I think I'm here about a week or two before Thanksgiving. So in the house is all of her family members and relatives and friends from around the village that are helping get the muck tuck ready for Thanksgiving. Funny thing about this photo was in Kaktovik. When I went there, I was like, I'm going to do this whole project on Hasselblad and on film, and I did. But when I went there, I was like, I'm going to do it all with natural light. So when I went there at that time of the year, there was only 20 minutes that the sun would just graze the horizon line. And I didn't bring a flash. I had my tripod, thank God. Oh my God, if I didn't have my tripod, I'd have been done. But so with this photo, you know, it's probably like 2 o'clock, you know, who knows, maybe pushing 3 or 4. But so it's like during the day, because there's still light behind her. But this whole photo happened because there was an LED street lamp behind me, and I had the tripod, and it was 1/8 of a second at 2.8. And I was like, Marie, you gotta hold really still. They're like super slow shutter speed. You're just like, she held still. It's sharp. I'm telling you, it's sharp. Or sharp enough. It's sharp. Probably did like 3 frames of this, and then we moved on because there was so much happening. But yeah, I love Marie. This is Jonas McKenzie. He was a student, you know, he is or was a student at the high school, and I met him briefly the night before. He was playing guitar, and I really wanted to photograph him with his guitar. So during class, or not during class, but during school, I don't know if he was in class, I went to the school and was like, hey, can I grab Jonas, grab him for a quick photo? So they let me grab him, take him out for a quick photo. A lot of these photos, I'm really happy to say, like, I've done quite a bit, well, yeah, by now, quite a bit of work with National Geographic. A lot of them ran online, but this is the only one, because I love print, this is the only one that ran in print. So there's Marie Rexford again in the center singing. I never shared these photos on I Am Inuit's website, book, or Instagram. I think it was a collective decision not to. I think they're important. I probably did or would have thought to include these, but so we're at a Singspiration here. There's a woman in the top right-hand corner there that's about to pass away. And so a lot of the members of the community came together for this Singspiration to celebrate her life and sing. And that's Jonas there in the bottom middle in the white shirt. That's where I met him. The trip started off extremely well. My first trip, sorry, for I Am Inuit. I went to Quinnahock for the first trip, and the idea, we were still building the idea of what I Am Inuit could be, and it was going to be a social media project. So with social media, it seems like it's always best if you're consistently posting, you'll get more people following and enjoying the images and liking the photos and stuff. So my idea was, wouldn't it be cool if we could post a photo every day for a year? So the first trip I went on, I got a ton of sense of place photos that I loved. I think I got like 24, I want to say 24 portraits and interviews. And that trip was a little bit longer. It was about 5 or 6 days. And I was like, this is going to be great. Like, this is no problem. If I keep these numbers up for this whole project, I'll be able to post a photo every day easily. And as I went on and I went to other villages and that were not in the summer, I would be like happy if I walked away with 5 portraits and interviews and some sense of place photos. It got really stressful. I was just like digging, like, okay, what photo will actually work to keep this consistent looking and up to the standards of what I wanted to have. But that first trip like set the bar and it slowly went down. But then there was other villages where it's like I'd walk away with like 10 to 15 interviews and portraits. And I'm just like, yes, thank you. But yeah, you had to really, if you're on a roll, you're on a roll. But if it's not, it's like, ooh, that's tough. This was from the first trip I went on. And for me, this is a very, to me, this is one of my like top, if I had to pick like top 5 photos of my portfolio and my career, this is one of them. It's not sharp. I totally missed the focus on it, but I love it to death. And what I really loved about it when I first made it was because I hadn't seen anything else like it. That was like, you know, contemporary work. And it had a funny story behind it too, which always makes me laugh. I walked by and these guys are like, you know, a couple 100 feet away from the road. And I walked by and saw them and waved because they saw me. And I've got 2 Hasselblads strapped to me, you know. I walked by and waved and they're like, hey. I kept walking and then I walked like 50 feet and I was like, Brian, if you don't turn around and at least go ask if you could make a photo of them, you're going to regret it for the rest of your life. So I went back and asked, and they're like, yeah, totally. And then I like interviewed them with my recorder, got them all to sign my model releases right there. Like it was very sweet and they were the sweetest guys. Yeah, it's just one of my favorites. Yeah, totally missed the focus. It's not tack sharp by any means. My friend Allison Warden. So I try to mix it up between, you know, when I would be in Anchorage and not traveling for the project, I'd try and get what we called urban Inuit. So Allison's a good friend of mine and did a portrait and interview with her. This is a funny photo too, because I absolutely love this photo. It's one of my favorites from the project. It was taken from the Nalugvik Hotel in Kotzebue. And I was waiting for my flight. So I went and waited in the, like they have a waiting, you know, like lounge area upstairs that faces the Kotzebue Sound. So I was standing there on the phone talking to my wife and like looked out and saw this musher coming, grabbed my Hasselblad, bellied up to the window and like popped it when this musher went by. This was a possibility for the book cover, but I had to say no to that just because I'm not 100% sure if this person's Inuit, and it would suck to have a book called I Am Inuit and not if the person's like, hey, that's me, you know. Like, oh no. But so I asked around, like I emailed and talked to people in Kotzebue and trying to figure out who the musher was, and they couldn't identify the musher. So I mean, if John Baker doesn't know, like I'm like, who knows? So this was taken in Shishmaref. How this happened was my friend Dennis, he's flying his drone right now above the house. So his daughter is watching the drone in the air. And this is, yeah, I love this photo also on a technical standpoint, because this is made with my Mamiya 6 that I got down here. And this is my second Mamiya 6. My first one, it's like the Mamiya 6, the 75mm lens. And for some reason, that particular camera, that lens and that body lined up so perfectly where everything was so sharp. And I miss that camera so much. It's still sitting up in the Alaska Photographic Repair in Fairbanks. He takes care of all my Mamiya stuff. He's amazing and knows Mamiya so well. But so when I had to ship that one out to him, we're still waiting to find parts for it because it's an older camera, you know, can't find them anywhere. So I picked up this one and it's sharp, but it's not that sharp like the other one. It's, yeah. This is, oh my gosh. I wish you could see this face. Oh God. Okay. Friend Holly. And traditional Inuit tattoos. Also in Anchorage. Utqiagvik after butchering a whale. Okay, so that's the end of I Am Inuit. I think, yeah, that's definitely the end of I Am Inuit. Think I have any more fun stories? Too much fun stories from that? Maybe there's more. But so after I Am Inuit, after the book came out, after, you know, everything was said and done, I wanted to continue my work on photographing Inuit, also because I'll always be photographing Inuit and also in Alaska. But so I thought it would be cool to photograph Inuit of the circumpolar. So that means Inuit in Russia, Canada, Greenland, and Alaska. I wanted to expand the project. I still want to, but it's a long process and it costs a lot of money to go to all these places. But in 2018, I got a couple of grants, a couple of fellowship grants, one from the Rasmussen Foundation, one from the Native Arts and Cultures Foundation. And I started the project. So I'm really happy to have started it, but there's still a lot more work to do. But so this is the first trip from this project. I thought it, because, you know, we were a nomadic people, it would be fun and smart to start the project by land. So Bruce here, I first met him during, let's see, might have been just before I Am Inuit started. I photographed in Kaktovik for another company. I think it might have been ANTHC. I'm not sure. I'd have to look at that. But then we really got to know each other while I was in Kaktovik for I Am Inuit. And while I was there, he told me how twice a year, he travels to Aklavik, Canada to visit his relatives because he was born in Canada. And so he goes by snow machine during the winter and just goes the whole way. He brings his family food from Kaktovik. It's just beautiful. And then in the summer, he goes by boat. And on the first trip he went on, after we had spoken about this, I missed it. Like, I don't know if I ran out of money or what, but I couldn't make it. But so I was like, man, I can't make this snow machine trip, which to me in the big picture was fine because I would have been the worst on a snow machine trip for that long. Like, it would destroy me. I grew up riding on some snow machines and I don't think I can go as far as he can and as fast as he can for that long. But so he's like, it's all right, man. Like, I'm going to do it again this summer with the boat. I was like, perfect. So yeah, we went on the trip from Kaktovik. And this is us waiting, actually. So, but we went on the boat ride from Kaktovik to Aklavik, Canada that summer. It took about 2.5 to 3 days for the ice to move out. What's really cool about Bruce is, like, he's always watching the water, always at the window. He's sitting down in his house. You look at him and you watch him, and like within a minute, within 30 seconds, he's looking out the window to check the water. It doesn't matter what he's doing. He just does it. He wants to know where that water's moving. But it took us about 3 days for the ice to pull back for us to get out on the boat. So during the 3 days, hung out in Kaktovik. and made pictures that I could. This is when we hit it. So we have Bruce on the right and Herman on the left. We also had Herman's son and wife, Bruce's daughter and her boyfriend, and myself. So it was pretty loaded boat, and took a couple days to get out there. This is Bruce's daughter and her boyfriend. This is while we're waiting. One of my goals as a portrait photographer or a documentary photographer is to, you know, I love, like, if I'm investing into a project, I really want to like have the trust and clear communication with everybody that I'm photographing. And if you feel comfortable enough to photograph them sleeping and they feel comfortable enough to have you photograph them while they're sleeping, like, that's a pretty good feeling. This was actually on the way back, so it's a little bit around the place with this body of work. But so this was on the way back from Aklavik, and we're headed back to Kaktovik. And it looks like dust all over the photo, but it's actually all mosquitoes. It was painful. This was Shingle Point. There's going to be a few photos from here. This is not midway, but like when you've made it into Canada. This is the first fish camp we hit, and Bruce's family has fish camp cabins there. And this is at fish camp. We spent the night here. No, not this time. So we spent the afternoon here, and then headed on to Aklavik. And this was actually in Kaktovik. Sorry, these are a little out of order. So now we're in Aklavik, and this is a photo that I made in the house of where we were staying. And these are the relatives of Bruce. And these photos here on the wall of Bruce running around from the polar bear, it was really cute because his nephew was like, "These are the photos that made my uncle famous." I'm a big fan of photo clouds, photo collages in homes, and I love it every time I walk into, like, you know, a village house. Like, there's just photos all over the place, like printed photos framed and hanging. It makes me so happy. This is when we were leaving. That's Tori, Bruce's daughter. So this was at the Aklavik. This was at the Aklavik dump, and it was the only place I got a photo of a bear. And I guess Aklavik, the word Aklavik actually means the place of the bear. It's the only place I found a bear. It was really hot while we were there, like pushing high 80s, maybe 90s. So we went out with a group of youths that were going swimming at this pond on the way back. Tori and Bert sleeping. I can't remember this man's name. So when we first got there, there was, so it seemed like, because where Aklavik is, you have to go down the Mackenzie River, which is quite a ways, like a long ways away from the north coast of Canada. And some people spotted belugas coming down the river. And so Aklavik got ready for them and got 6 of them. But I'm assuming they were lost because that was pretty far away from the coast. That's all the fresh beluga. And oh my God, it was so good. Super fresh, little soy sauce, so good. This is Shingle Point again, the fish camp. This is our crew. Okay, so now when we were heading back to Kaktovik, we stopped at the fish camp, and again the ice came in, so it took us about another 2 days, maybe 3 days, 2 nights, I don't know, 2 or 3 days to be able to leave fish camp to get back to Kaktovik. Fish camp. Try and pick it up for you a little bit too. Oh, we're doing all right. I was very, very, very grateful because we had quite a large crew, you know, like there was 4 or 5 of us at this point, and nobody complained about sharing their food with us, which was just unbelievably lovely. How you take care of your trash there. North coast of Alaska. This is literally one of the last photos I took on the way back to Kaktovik. Okay, cool. We're moving along. I'm going to try and plow through these for you. So that was a lot. Alatka. My well, the Alatka means it's the Inuit word for my relatives. So that was the last body of work. So I thought that was made in 2018. I Am Inuit was 2015, 2016. The book came out in 2018, I think. And then before that, it was kind of all over the place. So I thought it'd be fun to share a couple bodies of recent work. So I'll try and go through this quickly for you. But so this is a story I shot this summer with my friend Jenna Coons. It was funded by the Pulitzer Center and ran on L.com. But so Anastasia. So this story was called Bringing Anastasia Home. There's just a few photos I brought from this body of work. She had passed away at a boarding school in Pennsylvania, and this story is about bringing her remains back to her home in Alaska, Old Harbor. So the boarding school right now, they're trying to go through remains and identify who's who and where and how to get them home. I can't remember his name right now, sorry, but he's a Russian Orthodox priest, and he is based in Kodiak, and so he flew with us from Kodiak to Old Harbor for the funeral. We did our best to try and track down any living relatives, and there was, you know, a couple that we knew of that we talked to, and including this man here who's helping bury her. But it would be funny because like we would go walk around town and like tell people what we're doing. They're like, oh yeah, we're related. Like there's more relation that we knew of. But it was really cool to be in that community and just see how excited they were to see her come home. This is at the potluck after the funeral. What's weird about this one is like, I knew what we were going to go do, like what story we were trying to tell about bringing her home. But when the funeral started, I was like, I forgot and didn't realize that I was going to be attending a funeral today. you know, because it's just, you're so in the mode and so focused on photographing. You have an idea what you're doing, but when it's all happening in front of you, it becomes very real. This is a little bit more lighthearted. So I'm very proud of this one. Not this photo specifically, but this story. I'm sure we all have our like dream publications that we've always wanted, the bucket list publication that you would love to get into. And for me, mine has always been the New Yorker. I've been a subscriber forever. It's one of the only magazines I'll ever pick up and like be excited to look through from the cover to the back. So at this time, this was in 2021, I had done an assignment for them for the New Yorker Online, and I was very excited and so happy to do that. But I got hit up for this story where they needed a photograph for a fiction story. So they sent me the story and I got to make a concept of a photo, which was just like a dream to me. So the woman in the story, she was a heavy smoker. So a lot of them, well, the three I'm showing, they all have smoking included. I made this one because in the story, she liked to smoke by the open door of the apartment she was living in. So that was the concept behind this one, but this was my favorite and was so happy to see this run in print with the story. Also because the concept behind this was her smoking in the car, so it worked perfect. That's my car too. Oh, this is also my house. You can do a lot from home, right? Especially in 2021. Okay, I think this is the last body of work I wanted to share really quick. You know, all my work kind of like congeals together. It's all intertwined together. There's lots of different paths and ties to everything. It's all personal to me. Everything's personal. So like my commercial work, my editorial work, like it all means a lot to me. And it, you know, I care about every photo that goes out. So for this is a really extremely fun project I got to work on, and it was for Adidas in North Dakota. Pharrell Williams was coming out with a new shoe. One of my friends who I co-founded Indigenous Photograph with, Josue Rivas, he was going to be the art director on the shoot, and they wanted an all Indigenous crew on the shoot. So they asked me if I was interested, and I was like, yes, please. And you know, the whole concept behind the shoot was, you know, Pharrell's really tight with the nation in North Dakota, and we want, you know, to have it all be down based out of there. So, and Josue and I, long story short, Josue and I, we met at a National Geographic conference in 2018, and we both photographed in Standing Rock, so we were both very aware of each other's work. And well, that was in 2016, and so we were like fans of each other, and so we met there with another friend, Daniela Zelkman. We all founded Indigenous Photograph, and now we get to work together on other fun projects like this. But so all the shoes are Pharrell shoes, but it's not, you know, I don't photograph like a product photographer, so it's a little different. But they told me to just do what I normally do and what I like to do. That's what I did. This is Josue. He's filming a lot with his 8mm camera. It was really funny because, you know, I shoot all 6x6 film. I have 2 Hasselblads on this one, in the Mamiya 6. And they were like, but can we see the photos? I'm like, nah, it's film. They're like, because they're used to when you work on a project like this, when there's like huge crew and lots of money on the table. They're used to being able to like see your photos as you photograph them. And what we ended up doing is, like, me and one of the producers, I would set up the photo. Every location had to be approved before we even photographed it. So I'd set up the Hasselblad on tripod, and they would come over with their phone and take a quick photo through the Hasselblad. And they'd be like, how's that look? And they'd be like, it looks good, go. And it's like, oh my gosh, like, this is hilarious. But it was great. That was the most film I shot ever on an assignment. And it was like 2 days, maybe 3 days of shooting. And it was great because, like, I showed up and I had 100 rolls of 120 waiting for me when I got there and blasted through most of it, and it totally overwhelmed my lab with all that film. But yeah, everything's photographed with either Kodak Portra 160 or Kodak Portra 800. I do 800 in the Mamiya and 160 in the Hasselblad. But like, what I really wanted to do with this work is, like, I don't want you to be able to like tell the difference between my personal work and the commercial work. This one was tough because they kept wanting a skyline shot, and I just never saw the right skyline. And then this one had a little bit of the moon there, and I was like, all right, this is gonna have to do. There's your skyline shot. But what's also funny about this body of work, when I was thinking about this when I was putting this into the slideshow for this organization especially, I think this body of work has some of the most sense of place scenic photos out of all of them. Because we were just shooting nonstop. It's like cameras right there with you the moment you wake up till when you get to bed. This was taken with, this one was really actually tough. Using a waist level viewfinder on a Hasselblad with a extension tube on it to like, so you can get focus between a foot and like 6 inches is like the worst, because you're like waist level like this, like it's so hard. Like, I'm not that strong. So they really did want me to get a lot of sense of place images here, because it all together, when it was all put together, you know, there's people with the shoes, there's the shoes themselves, but they weren't so worried about me getting individual photos of the shoes, because they're going to have a product photographer photograph them in a studio. So I didn't have to worry about that too much. But in the end, it was with really beautiful, like a small zine that would come with the shoes. All right, that's the end of that. Woo, sheesh. All right. Any questions? Thank you.
Right, in the last few shots that you showed here, where were those taken?
Standing Rock in North Dakota. Yeah. Mostly in Standing Rock, yeah. Thank you. Yeah, I'm up for anything. Thank you. Thank you. I love it up there, like especially Kaktovik. It's a small village and I love any village that I can get to and just like walk around. Like that's my main goal. Is like that's my favorite thing about a village is like when you can just land and get to walking. Whenever anybody offers me a ride, I typically decline because I'll probably get lazy in the car and not want to get out and take a photo. It's better just to walk. Mhm. Yes, it is. That is true. Oh, let's see. Yep. All right, cool. Thanks. Thanks for having me. I'm so happy to see you all. What's that? Good. All right on. Good to hear. Thanks. Sweet. It depends. Typically it's, hi, my name's Brian. This is what I'm doing. I'm very upfront with everybody about what I'm doing, who I'm photographing for, just being clear with everybody about everything. And then just from there, it's like, what are you up to? What are you doing? Like, I don't understand what you're doing. Can you tell me about it? Yeah. And that's the thing is like, with a lot of my work, and especially in the villages, I grew up in Girdwood in Anchorage. Like when I was growing up, we moved from Kivalina when I was 1 month old. We moved to Girdwood eventually after Sitka for a little bit. So, but mostly just Girdwood. So Girdwood, and then we moved to Anchorage in '97. And so I grew up completely disconnected from like my Inupiaq culture. I didn't, understand it. I didn't know it. Like it was just like, I knew that I was an Inupiaq, but like didn't understand the village life, And so that's why like when I went up there in 2005 and just had, the best time of my life with relatives and like figuring out things for me at, pretty young age, yeah, my entire career basically has been, well, while working in the villages, is just like reconnecting to my heritage and getting to know my own culture. Yeah. And it's, oh, I'm curious. Like I want to know. Yeah. Yeah. Right. Love it. Yeah. Love it. Yes. Oh,
You always try to get model releases pretty much everywhere you go.
no way. Dude, I hate model releases. I hate them so much. I had to get them for I Am Inuit. Otherwise, I never get them. And because what I'm mostly working in rural Alaska, it's editorial. So I don't need model releases. I go out and I have a family to follow, I have a person to follow, but we don't need model releases. And I don't even want model releases. Like I want everybody that I photograph to have a say in where their photo's going. So if I want it to be used editorially, I'm not going to try and sell it commercially. And if somebody asks me to sell it commercially, if I don't like them, I'm just like, sorry, no model release. If I'm down with the commercial client, I will, be like, well, I can reach out to the person in the photo and try and get a model release. And I've done that in the past. But typically I'm like, nope, I want people to be able to protect themselves. Yeah. Like I don't want it showing up somewhere they don't want it to be. Yeah.
So first of all, Teku.
Oh yeah, Teku.
I think it's really great you started by because a lot of things that people are getting into photography have been for a while, they're trying to figure out their sense of personal style. I think sharing that journey is important and also. A question for you, so if you can get funding, what's next on your circumpolar?
I'd love to go to Greenland. Like, I would love to go to Greenland. I'd love to go to Russia. Like, been to Canada quite a bit, but I would love to go to Greenland. That would be ideal for me to go overseas there. Yeah, but right now, yeah, that's the only other body of work I really want to do. I keep having friends send me like, you should apply for this grant and apply for this grant. And ever since COVID, I've been like accepting assignments and doing assignment work and commercial work, but like I've felt like tapped out and not sure what I want to do next. So I'm still kind of waiting for that idea, you know. Hopefully, like I know I want to keep working on Alatka or whatever that becomes with, you know, I'm Inuit. But as far as any other like personal work I want to do, I'm like, I'm not sure, you know. And maybe I'll think of something in 3 years, you know. But everything goes by so quick. Everything takes so much time. Like any project nowadays that I'm doing, I'm like, realistically, like any personal project, I'm like, it might be done in 5 years, you know, because everything takes so much time. Oh, yeah. I don't know. Yeah, even with books, like I love books. I love picking up books. I love looking at books. I love smelling books. You know, like I love books. But I think the only other I'd love to do an I Am Alaskan Volume 2 because it's been about 10 years since the first one came out. And I think that'd be kind of cool to make it like a 10-year gap, like yearbook kind of thing. You know, like where's everybody at now? How's Alaska looking now? I think that'd be fun. I'd love to do a book of contact sheets. I think that'd be really fun to do because I like looking at contact sheets, and I'd love to just make a pretty photo book, you know. Like just make a book, like let's just make a pretty photo book. Like I'd love to do that because a lot of the photos here that you see, like because I photograph with 120 and you only get 12 shots per roll, like Marie Rexford, like that's one of my most notable photos that's well known. I took maybe 3 frames, but wouldn't it be fun to see like all the other frames around that, you know, on a contact sheet? Because I don't know, I like that kind of stuff with photography, and it's just all with the love of photography. Yeah. Yeah, I started off, yeah, with 35, didn't catch to it. And I do miss my Leica M6 though. I really love that camera. That made shooting so much fun. That thing was a tank and felt so good on the hip when you walked around with it. Oh gosh, it was so good. This thing, like I love this camera, but it's not like the M6. But I got to a point with why I got into 6x6 was like, I was like, so Brian, when you're on your deathbed, what work of yours do you want to see, you know, like that you're leaving behind? And I was like, you love 6x6, you always go back to 6x6, so I'm sticking to 6x6. So I sold my digital camera, I sold my 35mm shift. I still have a Canon. Well, my uncle left me a bunch of like a Canon F1, AE2, a whole bunch of Canon stuff. So I still have that, and I still shoot with that for some things for fun. But I was like, stick to 6x6. That way you have a consistent body of work when you're dead. Yeah. Anybody else? So what is it about the 6x6 that has me hot and bothered? It's just the way it was the first camera that when I picked it up and looked through it, that I felt like I could see. Everything else, I felt like I was struggling to like find a composition. And with 6x6, and specifically the Hasselblad, it just fell naturally to me. I love that it's 100% mechanical. I love that I don't have to worry about batteries dying in the cold. All I got to do is keep a AA warm in my light meter, and I'm good to go. Like it always works. I love that. In the Mamiya 6, I use that. That's kind of like my quick camera where I just pull it up and pop it off really quick, but it's a rangefinder. And I like the Hasselblad because it's an SLR and you can make everything just perfectly composed the way you want it. And with a rangefinder, I have a really hard time getting everything really lined up. But I like the symmetry in a photograph. Yeah. Young me would have been bothered by this photo because when I worked for Clark, he had this Diane Arbus poster. And so I started looking into Diane Arbus. And I went to Barnes and Noble, I looked at her book, and I was like, I hate this. I hate it so much. Everything's centered. Everything's like compositionally like incorrect. And then I realized after I kept looking at the photos, I was like, these photos make you feel something though. And these photos, like a mixture of the subject matter and who she was and how she photographed, like I then fell in love and became obsessed with Diane Arbus. I have every one of her books now. But like back then, like the square threw me off because I was like, rule of thirds. You gotta do rule of thirds. I'm like, no, you don't have to. Do what works. If it looks good, do it. And if it makes you feel something, yeah. This is Mamiya 6. All right. Anybody else? Cool. Thank you. Oh. So good to see you, Alan.
Here you go.
Oh,
You get the honors.
okay. I'm going to give this. I forgot your first name for some reason. What is it? Frederick. Yeah. No. Okay. Frederick and. Okay. Who wants to talk? Okay.
You know what you have, I don't.
You know, this is some free giveaways that Frederick has, and he wanted to know if anybody's interested in it. So I'll let him come up to the front of the room and just show it. And in the meantime, we'll, pardon me? Okay, but you still have to wear this because the people online might be interested.
So. Okay. Okay. It's complicated.
1, 2.
So I so I just have some older camera gear. I was cleaning out the closet, and this was a given to me of Vivitar 70-210 lens. Anybody's collectors here, you're more than welcome to have it. I also have, and would like a colorful Nikon camera strap. Some reason I ended up with way too many of these. I have, this is a Pixel kind of remote that camera that you can set on the camera, and then you can see what you're taking the picture of on this display. So it links the picture of the camera sees to you. You can use this remote. And this is also old technology. This is an Epson P2000, not compatible with most card readers any longer, but if you want to download with the USB, it's still there. Or if you have a device similar, because I have I think 4 batteries. Somebody uses something like that and want the batteries, more than welcome to have them. They've been laying in my drawer for way too long. Hopefully somebody else has more storage space than I do. But if anybody's interested in anything or know somebody that might and want to pass it on, I'd be happy to just pass it on and give it a new home.
Sorry, Frederick.
I figured what a shot.
Take a look at a couple of those things.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's 6 people online.
Anybody online interested in those things that Frederick just said? Raise your hand on the computer
Chat.
or chat. Yeah.
Mhm.
No? Okay, so we're gonna go right into our drawing, and tonight our prize. Oh yeah, before I forget, while we were all sitting here, Jessica sent me some information. Hang on, I gotta do this real quick. Is that good? Okay, so people were asking about her workshop. So this is what she said that I will be posting this week. Creating Impact, March 11th through the 13th. Join Alaska Wild juror Jessica Ritz for a 3-day workshop that will help you create stronger, more compelling images. Day 1 covers how to create visual impactful images, a critique of selected contest submissions from Alaska Wild, and insight on how you can bring even more depth, emotion, and narrative into your work. On days 2 and 3, you'll put into practice based on your individual interest in the type of impact you want to create. Jessica will provide guidance as you shoot, select, and edit photos. The workshop will wrap up with a critique session and ideas for next steps so you can continue to create images that feed your passion and engage your viewers. This full 3-day workshop is limited to 15 people. So there you have it. So if anybody's interested, get a hold of me before I walk out of here and I'll put you on the list.
Does everybody have a ticket for the door prize? Anybody missing ticket?
Hey, sorry guys that are online, but you don't get a drawing if you're not here in person. All right, I'll pull and you read it. Cause I can barely read what I have on my phone. Here you go.
Okay. And the last digits are 213, lucky 213.
213. All right. We have for you tonight a beautiful Carl Johnson Aurora 2023 calendar. Oh, I'm sorry.
He's got a picture in it.
It's a Greatland Graphics. Okay. Anyway, here you go. I don't have any more prizes.
Well, there's more prizes in the bin. We can.
Oh, where's the bin? It's out there. Do you want me to go? Okay, somebody go grab it. We'll get some more going here. We need to go collect some. Oh yeah, and if anybody's going to Nampa, let me know because I'll be going this year. It is May 4th, 5th, and 6th, I think. 3 to 6. With on either side. Yeah, looks really good. It's going to be in Tucson, Arizona this year. So Nampa this year, if you book before January 15th, is $495 if you remember.
Let's go 2 more and they'll get to choose.
Okay. Okay, I can't read that.
Okay. The number is 212.
Yay,
Okay,
Jen.
so we have a rocket blower, Canon lens cap, 77mm, or a Nikon 77. Okay,
You want to do one more?
we'll do one more.
Okay, one more.
One more. 217.
217. Going once? Going twice? Okay.
They left? Oh, no.
It's probably
Or
Jeff.
that
Could
could have been,
have been Jeff.
okay. 219.
219?
Okay.
Yeah, or night.
All right, thanks everybody. So Carl, what is next month's presenter?
Come on now.
I thought I could- all right.
This is why I hold it. So next month's presenter, Jamin Hunter Taylor, who is going to be giving a presentation on how to get great wildlife photos in marginal lighting conditions. So instead of just expecting perfect lighting for your wildlife photography, how can you get great shots when the light isn't so great? That's next month.